Hey everybody, welcome back to BuQeye Barbecue. Today we're going to do what I think are the best pork chops ever. So let's get started. So we're going to get our pork chops prepped. I've got them off camera here. I will bring them all in on a rack here in a second. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a sharp knife here and cut right down the edge of the fat along the side. So just put a score in that fat. I don't want to go into the meat at all, but this will help the pork chops not to shrivel up because the fat shrinks on the cooker. So we're just going to do that on all of them. Now if your pork chops don't have a lot of fat around the edge, first of all I feel sorry for you, but you may not have to do this, so just keep that in mind. All of mine have at least a little bit of fat. This is some really nice looking pork chops. I'm going to do this one twice just because of how thick that fat is. It's Wild Fork Foods Kubota pork, bone-in pork chops. So they look really good. Really actually looking forward to having these for dinner. So there we go. All of the pork chops cut now. Move this cutting board out of the way. We're going to use it here in just a second again, and we'll bring our pork chops on the rack. So we're going to get these seasoned up, and then they're going to go back in the fridge. I'm doing this about 3 hours before we're planning to cook these. So the first thing I'm going to do is slice a lime in half. And I've got my lime squeezer. Fresh lime is preferred for this, but we're just going to squeeze a little bit of lime juice on each pork chop on this side. There we go. And then we'll turn our pork chops over. I should have really rubbed that in a little bit. And again, fresh lime is best. I have been guilty of going the easy route when I've needed to for things like that, but if you can get a fresh lime, you'll want to do it. And then just a little bit more on this side. And then we'll rub that in. So there we go. And I am going to remove one glove now because we're going to get our pork chops seasoned up. Use salt and pepper, your favorite barbecue rub. Today I'm going with Holy Gospel from Meat Church. A nice barbecue rub I think will go great on pork chops. I've never actually used this on pork chops, but I think it'll be good. So we're just going to liberally season each side. That lime juice will help it to stick a little bit. I'm really starting to like the Wild Fork Foods meat. I'm a Porter Road person. I do a lot of Porter Road stuff, but sometimes I find stuff on Wild Fork for a better price and different cuts. And while I'm flipping these over, I'm just going to do the outside edge of each of these as well. And then we'll get the other side up for seasoning. So again, we're doing this about 3 hours in advance of when I want to start this cook. So we're going to let these just kind of self-marinate in the refrigerator. And then we're going to take them out about 15, 20 minutes, maybe even 30 minutes to sit out on the counter and come up in temperature a little bit before we put them on the cooker. Okay, and now we'll just season the other side. Again, these are pretty thick chops, so I'm going pretty liberally here. So use your judgment with the size of the chops that you have. I would avoid using those boneless loin cuts. Those are okay and serve a purpose, especially if you're going to pound them out and pan fry them. But this dish really works better with big, thick, cowboy type chops with the bones in. So that's what I would go for. All right, there we go. We're gonna get these in the fridge, and I will bring you back here in a couple hours after these are in the fridge for a while and we start to get our cooker on. There's a couple of different things I want to talk about then, so we'll see in a little bit. Okay, so we're gonna get the Fast Eddie's PG500 started, and I'm actually gonna start it a little differently than I usually do. I'm gonna start it off low because I've got this Himalayan salt block for cooking on that is actually not the main part of this cook, but I just got it and I want to try it out, and I'm just going to do some asparagus on it. But from what I understand, you have to start the temperature slowly on this and let it build gradually. So I'm going to start the Cook Shack or the PG500 off at like 225 or so, and then after 15-20 minutes bump it up to 350, and then to our final temperature, which will be between 400 and 450. So we're going to go ahead and get the cooker started here. Going to set it on 225 to start. And I'm going to go ahead and put the salt block in. There, and that's where I'll cook the asparagus on the left side over the fire pot. And then I'm also going to go ahead and get this enamel coated cast iron dish on the other side and let it start warming up as well. And this is what we're going to do the pork chops in today. I don't need the lid on this, so I'll go ahead and take that off, and we will just shut the cooker down, or shut the doors of the cooker and let it start coming up to temperature. So in the meantime, we'll start getting our other stuff prepped. Okay, so we're just going to get everything ready that we want prepped here. Again, this video is not really focused on the asparagus. But real quick, I'm going to get it ready. I'm not going to do the break test. I just like to cut it somewhere just above the highest white point. So that's going to be our asparagus. The only thing we're going to do is get some olive oil on it. And by the way, this is not extra virgin olive oil. It is just regular olive oil. I want a little higher smoke point. And we're going to use some of the same seasoning that we used for the pork chops, so the Holy Gospel from Meat Church. And I'm just going to get that seasoned up. I'm going to get this back into the refrigerator, and it will go on last. I don't expect it will take long. So our asparagus is prepped and ready. Okay, the other things that I've pretty much gotten this stuff ready to go. We're going to use in this pork chop recipe some heavy whipping cream. So I've got, I don't know how much is in this jug. It's not full, but I'm going to use probably about a cup. I've also got some apple juice, Mott's 100% apple juice. I'm going to use probably about a half a cup of that. And those are estimates, really. Other things I have are about 3 tablespoons of butter. I'm going to use that in a couple of different spots as we cook these pork chops. I've got a teaspoon of thyme leaves. These are dried. I would have actually preferred fresh, but I forgot to get them at the store, so dried will work fine. And then I've got about 3 cloves of garlic, crushed and minced. And that's pretty much it. So our pork is seasoned. We're going to bring that in about 10 minutes. And that'll be about 30 minutes before we start this cook outside on the PG500. So we will bring you back when we get started. Okay, so I'm going to do one thing here and then shut the door of the cooker again. And then while the oil heats up, I'm going to talk about a couple of other things that I had forgotten to mention earlier. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put about 3 tablespoons of avocado oil, maybe 2 tablespoons, something like that. I'm not measuring. But good high temperature, high smoke point oil. I'm using avocado oil. So I'm going to get that shut. A couple things I had forgotten to mention earlier. I diced a both the whites and the green tops of 2 nice, good-sized green onions. I had forgotten to do that earlier. And I also added some dried parsley flakes to my thyme. Again, I would have used fresh, but I didn't have any. I forgot to get both thyme and parsley at the store, and dried will work. Okay, while that oil is heating up, I am now going to take part of my butter that we have ready to go. And I'm going to put probably about half in our pan here. So it's a good Irish butter. And the avocado oil will help that butter not to burn. So that's why I'm adding it. So I'm going to let that heat up, and we'll be back with you, and we'll put our pork chops on. Okay, we're going to get our pork chops on here. Our butter and oil is heated up. Cooker's running between 350 and 400, just so you're aware. There we go. Thought that pan would be plenty big enough. I was cutting it close. So we're going to let those go about 4 minutes, and then I'm going to check and see how our crust is forming on the bottom side, and we will think about turning them. So I will bring you back. Okay, so I checked that after about 3.5 minutes, and I don't feel like that side was getting hot enough. So I actually moved our pan to the other side and let it go another couple of minutes. So we're going to get these turned now. Listen to that sizzle. I love that sound. So I moved the pan right over the fire pot. So we're going to get these turned. Okay, those are looking good. Nice crust. There we go. And we're going to let those go another 4 to 5 minutes, and we'll bring you back. Okay, been another minute or 5 minutes. So we'll take a look here, see how these are doing. Sorry about the camera, I almost knocked it over. They smell great. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, I'm going to take these out, and I'm going to switch the pan back over to the other side so we can work on our sauce. So I tell you what, I'm going to do that, and then we will bring you back and start to work on our sauce. And these are getting close to done, so we'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, so we moved our pan. Our pork chops are, at least for now, out of the pan and just sitting off to the side. I'm going to add a little bit more butter. Hey, I said these were the best pork chops ever, not the healthiest. So we'll let that start to melt. Got a spatula here, we'll just start moving it around. The other thing I'm going to add right away is our garlic. And I like to let the garlic go until I can smell it. It's going to be a little bit hard to do that here, cooking it outside on the smoker like this. So I'm just going to let it go a minute. What you don't want it to do is burn. I'm going to go ahead and add my thyme and my parsley. I'm going to actually save a little bit of that back and get that stirred around. Here we go. Now I'm going to do the same thing with my onions. I'm going to throw about half of them in. Get those moving around. Next thing I'm going to do is add 2 cups of heavy cream. And after I stir that around, I'm going to shut this door and let this sauce go to work. We're going to shut this door and we will bring you back shortly to put the finishing touches on this. Okay, so this sauce has started to reduce. Last step is I have about a cup of apple juice. I don't think I'm going to use it all, but I'm going to go with about 2/3 of it probably, and we'll see how that does. And we're just going to let this continue to reduce. Alright, so we are going to shut our doors here, let this keep going, bring you back in a few minutes and finish this off. Okay, so we're going to get these pork chops back in this sauce. And just so you know, it's been about 10 minutes maybe since I took the pork chops out of the pan, so it hasn't been long at all. Gonna give this sauce a quick stir. That's looking really good. There we go. And now I'm just going to put my pork chops back in. These look great, by the way. Smell great too, for that matter. I temped these pork chops. They were about 135, something like that. I cook pork to 145, pork at least in chop or roast form. So we're going to get these up to 145, and this will be done. So, and by the way, if you cook pork to 165, pork like pork chops and pork roasts, it's just not necessary, and frankly, it's not nearly as good. So again, we're going to shoot for 145. You could even take these off at 140 and they would carry up. I personally like to take them to 145, even if they end up between 145 and 150 to finish. So that's what we're going to do here, and we will bring you back shortly. Okay, so this is going to be done. It's been about 10 or 15 minutes, something like that. Take a look, and that is absolutely freaking gorgeous. God, it smells great too. It's there's the best pork chops on the planet as far as I'm concerned. So this is burning through my gloves. So we're gonna put the lid on this now and just let it stay warm. And pardon the camera movement here. Matter of fact, I think I'll just do this. We won't move the camera, but we will put our salt block there. And here goes nothing. We'll put our asparagus there. Here we go. So we're gonna let that go, and we're gonna grab some tongs so I can move that around. Again, this video is not really about the asparagus, but you may as well come along for the ride. So we'll be back in a few minutes. All right, last clip before we plate and taste and my family eats dinner. So asparagus is sizzling. Ooh, nice color. My understanding is these salt blocks don't provide a ton of salt flavor, a little bit, so that's why I season them. There is a chance that I have now over-seasoned them if this really does provide more salt flavor than I think it does. But, oh well, we're learning. So we're gonna let these go another couple of minutes. I'm gonna get the camera inside so we can get this plated up, and we'll see you in a few. Okay, so these pork chops are ready to go. All that's left is to plate them up. So I've got my extra green onions here that I'm just going to sprinkle over the top. I love those last minute green onions with the crunchiness and the flavor they provide. And anybody that doesn't like them can avoid them pretty easily. So I think we're just going to plate this up and I'll try it on camera. We'll see how we did. Okay, well this is a different sort of shot and I'm having trouble getting in it, so we're just going to try everything and be done with this video. So I'm going to try the asparagus. Again, not really the focus of the video, but I want to see how we did on that salt block. Well, first things first, is not over seasoned. So what I've heard about those seems to be correct. They don't impart a ton of salt flavor, so you still need to season your food, but really good. I love the way they cooked them, a little crispy, exactly the way I like asparagus. So let's move on. That pan sauce is so good with the pork chops, and in our case, mashed potatoes. So here we go. I'm telling you, that is the best pork chop you will ever have. Give this a try. It doesn't hurt that this is pretty high quality meat. That Kubota Berkshire pork. But I've done this with just grocery store pork chops. Get the bone in, get them a little thicker. It's so good. My family is starving. It's time for us to eat. Thanks as usual for joining us here at BuQeye Barbecue. Do me a favor, like this video because it will be the best pork chop you've ever had. And subscribe to the channel if you would. I'd appreciate it. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.